This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I am here again with our good friend Jim Keys, who's the former CEO of 7-Eleven and the former CEO of Blockbuster. Jim, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be back with you.
So we left off with you talking about the transition of 7-Eleven. It was being sold, and then your transition to Blockbuster. And you mentioned some items that was just absolutely incredible, that in moments of a downturn, a bankruptcy, or something happening in the market, there's an opportunity to do something great. Sometimes you don't know what that great is yet in that moment, but you figured out a way to help navigate through that. But let's briefly go back, and as I promised you last time, I want to end talking about your book, because your book has some amazing concepts and ideas and stories. One of my early favorite books was the book with Jack Welch. From GE back in the days, and sounds like your book has some really great concepts. But walk us through again, just a recap. You're 7-Eleven, you started there as a pretty senior executive at 24-ish, and then worked your way to CEO at 7-Eleven before selling the company, and then you transitioned. Let's pick up where we were.
Sure. Well, it was a series of opportunities, and what I discovered is that not only, as I said previously, change equals opportunity, but sometimes in crisis is even greater opportunity. We don't tend to look at it that way.
Right.
We're humans, and humans are naturally resistant to change, and especially if that change has a negative spin on it. So when something bad happens to a company, if I looked around at 7-Eleven, I saw a lot of people fleeing, right? Jump ship, let's go get another job. Company may go away, my job may get eliminated, et cetera. And those who stay tend to work less because they're just not as motivated, not fired up. But if you look at any change as opportunity, and if you think about the roots of all commerce, commerce begins and ends with something changes and somebody comes in and offers up a solution and they get compensated for it.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what happens? They get big, and then they are afraid to change.
Right.
Because what worked for them before may not work in the future, but they're afraid.
That's a really good point, Jim. I've been saying that a lot to businesses that I've worked with, is that they do a lot of great things. They're willing to take risk early on, and then they become big. It's no different than a football game. If a team is doing well, they feel like they're close to victory, they stop doing everything that worked in the 3 prior quarters.
Exactly.
And they become a little too cautious.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes they lose.
And the other team comes back.
Exactly. I call it affectionately big company disease.
Right.
How many companies? Think about Sears Roebuck.
Yeah.
Here's one of my favorite stories. Sears Roebuck. Think about them. I grew up, I'm a little longer of vintage than you, but I grew up with a Sears catalog.
Right.
We didn't have Sears stores in my area, but we had Sears catalog, and I'd leaf through it, and I'd look at all these cool pictures, and maybe my dad would buy something out of that catalog. Right. Well, then all of a sudden, Sears started building stores, and they got big. And what happened? Walmart came in and started doing some very aggressive things with pricing and other things. And Sears didn't keep up. Sears suffered from that big company disease. But here's the ultimate irony. Along comes Amazon. What do you think Amazon is? It's an online catalog company.
It is.
It's full circle back to Sears. Why couldn't Sears have evolved and become what Amazon is today?
Agreed.
They could have, but that inertia creeps in, fear of change. I'm sure somebody at Sears would have said, that's not what we do.
Right.
We do stores, right? And so if you can overcome that change, and here's the other irony, you're an entrepreneur. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm more of a corporate entrepreneur. Well, think about those two words. It's an oxymoron, right?
Right.
Because entrepreneur is all about being an individual and being out there and taking risks. Being a corporate person, corporate is the definition for body, for one.
Right.
And so there's almost a natural tension between being an entrepreneur and being in a corporation.
Now, I've heard someone describe being innovative inside of a larger company as being an entrepreneur. So they're innovating, but with inside a bigger operation.
Yes.
And I thought that's true. They're still entrepreneurs, but they're not creating something from zero per se, but they're really revolutionizing a business.
They can. The challenge is to keep that entrepreneurial spirit
Agreed.
alive in a company. And candidly, most companies beat the entrepreneur out of the individual.
They do. And so I look back at when I was growing up, Sears was a big deal, Montgomery Ward's, JCPenney's, Kmart, big brands. I think if I remember correctly, I believe that Sam Walton used to work at JCPenney before creating his Five and Dime. And so when he started building his business, they weren't worried about him. Who's this small guy in Arkansas, right, trying to compete with us? And now they're at, I forget their numbers, but they're well over $500-600 billion a year in revenue. They're the largest company in the world, which is just incredible.
Yeah, but under serious pressure from Amazon.
Right.
Agreed. And Walmart has to change, but they're having a hard time changing because that inertia creeps in.
They do. And it's intriguing to see Amazon's continuous growth because they went from few million to tens of millions, 100 billion. Now I think they're over 200 billion in revenue, which is just remarkable.
Sure.
And they keep growing.
Yeah. Now I've got to tell you, having lived this experience, Blockbuster versus Netflix.
Yes.
It is very difficult to be CEO of Walmart and have to compete with someone like Amazon.
Right.
Because the standards are different.
It is.
Think about it. Amazon got by for how many years with negative cash flow?
Right.
If Walmart misses a quarter by a penny, the stock gets slammed.
It does.
Meanwhile, people are throwing equity value at Amazon while they're burning cash. So that perception can be really difficult when you're leading a large multinational corporation.
It is. Now, I remember when Walmart some years ago, they purchased this company because they wanted to try to compete with Amazon. They purchased a company, I believe it was Jet.com, Mark Lowe, to help get them in, and he became president of their online operation. And you would think a company with that level of resources could grow it relatively quick to compete strong with Amazon, but it's, as you mentioned, it's hard. It takes a lot of effort because you can't miss a quarter and have have no profit or revenue for a period of time or negative revenue.
Exactly. It's I feel the pain more than most because at Blockbuster, I joined the company in 2007 and we had a very bad year the year before. And the street was on us and the banks were on us and they were ready to shut down Blockbuster when I joined.
Right.
By 2008, we had tripled EBITDA. We had I think a 4x increase in our net income.
Wow.
And we were doing well. And yet our stock wasn't moving.
Right.
Because people believed that the Amazon model was a better model.
Right.
The irony was we could do everything that Amazon was doing.
Right.
And we're doing everything that Amazon was doing.
Right.
But the perception of them being a technology company and us being brick and mortar was very, very difficult to overcome.
That's interesting. So I think you wrote an article that appeared in Fortune magazine or a part of it, and the title was "Here's How I Saved 7-Eleven and Why I Couldn't Save Blockbuster." Tell me what the article was about, and your how Blockbuster. You mentioned some of this, but how difficult it was to save the organization.
Yeah, I like the article. I didn't like the headline because because it again falls into that perception. We did save Blockbuster.
You did. But they need viewership, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But we did save Blockbuster, but not in the way I would have liked.
Sure.
So when I joined Blockbuster, I set out to transform the company. Clearly, digital was coming. We didn't know when. We didn't know how soon. But the first thing I did was to buy a streaming video company.
Okay.
So we had a quality asset, a company called Movie Link that was actually created by 5 of the 6 studios.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no one knows this. People forget. We renamed it Blockbuster On Demand, had a huge competitive advantage for streaming versus Netflix because that company also had previously digitized 3,000 of the newest titles.
Right.
So Netflix was just beginning to think about streaming, and we had this quality asset to be able to compete with. What we also had is $1 billion on our balance sheet that came due in 2009.
Oh. Wow.
And when Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008,
Right.
all of a sudden, my job as CEO went from transforming the company to saving the company, having to deal with that balance sheet and get that debt refinanced. It was a very difficult challenge, but we were successful. We ultimately restructured the company.
Right.
We were able to hold off the aggressive investors that were trying to liquidate Blockbuster. And I had strategic partners. A very big unknown that we never publicized was a deal with Google that would have made Blockbuster side by side with YouTube. Everything free on YouTube, everything paid would be under the Blockbuster brand. Would have been a fabulous distribution partner. We were at definitive agreement stage, but the rumor that Blockbuster was going to file caused Google to pull the deal.
Wow. That is fascinating. I hadn't heard that. And for what it's worth, Google was still relatively young. I think it was Eric Schmidt back then that was the CEO.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is incredible that you had that opportunity.
It was a fabulous opportunity. It was good for them. They were getting a lot of pressure from the studios because people were streaming content, movie content on YouTube, and the studios hated that.
Right.
It was a good separation of powers, if you will, for all the free content on one channel, all of the paid content on another, strategically with the power of their distribution platform. Would have been fabulous. But they pulled the deal. We still had strategic partners. We had Dish Networks. We had been talking with AT&T about partnering up with DirecTV or Uverse as they had it then, as they had called it then, before they acquired DirecTV. We had been partnering in discussions with Korea Telecom even to bring their technology to the table. So there were strategic opportunities for a Blockbuster. We chose Dish Network because partly we liked their strategy. Their strategy was going to be bypass the internet, the traditional internet, go straight to mobility and leverage the coming 5G capability to download movies more efficiently onto your portable device and then upload them to any device.
So you know what's neat? I enjoy talking to you because you have a good perspective of history. 2008 doesn't seem like that long ago, maybe for me, but for a lot of people, it's a long time ago. There was so much happening in 2008 that people today would need to put the full context around it. So I'll mention some of those, and I'd love to get your response. But the iPhone had just been released
in 2007.
Right.
Yeah. There were no apps.
There were no apps
but on the iPhone,
and it was primitive.
Yeah.
The other thing that was happening, you
TVs
mentioned
were dumb.
They were, and you mentioned the Google, YouTube. YouTube was still relatively young, but the other thing that was happening, you mentioned the movie studios. At that time, you still had the issues with Napster and the music streaming.
Yes.
And that was still kind of circulating because, like what you mentioned, people were uploading content that the studios didn't like, whether music or movie. And then it was being essentially giving away in their mind.
Yes.
So they needed to put some structure around it. But iTunes hadn't really developed and all these other streaming services. And Napster, I remember walking across the campus out in California, and they had a lot of tents set up on campus saying you should not download anything from Napster or use it because it's a federal crime. It was a really big deal. So you have all of those items, and not to mention the housing crisis, and the financial crisis. And I think I mentioned to you before, I was in the middle of that housing crisis. So you have all of those elements taking place as you're trying to build something that hadn't yet been really developed or evolved.
Mm-hmm.
I commend you. It sounds like you were well ahead of the curve for what it's worth in trying to create that system.
We think we had a fabulous vision for the future of streaming.
You did.
We wanted to be the aggregator, something that doesn't exist today. Think about it.
Right.
And Netflix had their very model, a subscription model, really was geared toward less value content.
Right.
Because you don't put prime rib or New York strip on the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Right.
You could never afford it, right? So the new movies, the studios wanted to monetize the most current movies in a better way. That's why they preferred the Blockbuster model.
Right.
It's why they sold MovieLink to Blockbuster.
Interesting.
To avoid the fragmentation and the mess that's occurred today with all of these. Today you just don't know where to find.
That's true.
You've got your favorite movie out. Is it Hulu? Is it Amazon Prime? We were going to be the one aggregator.
That's hilarious because you're absolutely right. Today, I'm going to all the different platforms and where can I find the movie? And then I'm searching online, where can I find this specific movie and try to narrow that down. And if I don't have that specific service, then I might not be able to get it.
Exactly. And you know what's missing today? It's exactly what we were trying to build. Convenient access to media entertainment.
Incredible.
That's what we were trying to build for Blockbuster. It doesn't exist today because Blockbuster went away.
Now, and what's intriguing, though, is Netflix almost went away several times as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the articles just not long ago leading the headlines of these national newspapers. Can Netflix transition from the DVD model to the online model? So it's not as easy then as we think it is today because they made that transition successfully.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't, much like Blockbuster, they were questions about whether you can transition from the videos to the online. The same existed for Netflix.
Oh, yeah. They dodged the bullet so many times.
Podcasts are so popular, even monkeys are doing it.
75% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's 210 million people in the United States alone. And yes, podcasts are profitable. Joe Rogan is making $30 million per year. Your content, your knowledge is worth sharing. Don't just dream it, do it. Visit andycostafilms.com/podcast and turn your content into leaks.
They did.
We had an opportunity when we acquired MovieLink to acquire 60% of the long tail content. In other words, the older movies.
Right.
We already had the new movies. We had the chance to, this is for streaming. We had a chance to acquire 60% of the older movies. And that meant everything but Disney, HBO, and a couple of those that were locked up.
Right.
Netflix would still be doing DVDs by mail.
Wow.
We blinked. Now, anybody can second guess that,
Right.
but it was a $100 million a year commitment to get those movies exclusively.
Sure.
And had we done that, we may have bankrupted Blockbuster. Now, if I knew
interesting.
Blockbuster would ultimately not be, if I saw the financial crisis coming,
Sure.
I would have done that deal in a heartbeat, restructured the company around that digital content,
Right.
and we would have been that successful aggregator.
That is so fascinating.
I didn't have a crystal ball. So we passed on that. That opened the window for Netflix. But Netflix dodged another bullet. They were getting frankly, they had a bunch of old movies.
Right.
And people were tired of paying the subscription for nothing to see.
Right.
They rolled the dice, and it was a successful roll. So I don't fault them at all. But to go from a distributor of content to a producer,
Right.
which they did when they invested $100 million on something called House of Cards with Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
That was
It paid off.
that was betting the farm, because if that series had failed,
Right.
they would have thrown away $100 million. It could have crippled Netflix, and the whole binge watching would have been in question. But they rolled the dice. It came up successfully. It was a wild hit, and it created a whole new genre. But don't ever forget, Netflix pivoted from being a distributor of content to now a producer of content. And if you think about how hard that is, the creative process, just think about what happened to MGM Grand and some of the biggest movie studios that were out there.
Exactly. No, that, you're right. I forgot the Kevin Spacey House of Cards and how big of a deal that was. But you're right. They put everything on. They rolled the dice, and fortunately it worked, which kind of goes back to some of the points that you made earlier on chance equals opportunity. So they took a really big chance, and it produced a great outcome.
It did. It did.
Let's talk about your book. I'd love for you to tell me how and why you started writing your book and what it represents. And in the last segment, we spoke about an event that I attended where we were discussing, is the American dream dead? Like, can young people today be confident in knowing that if they work hard and make a commitment, be creative, that they can succeed? And it sounds like your book lays a foundation for that premise.
Absolutely. I am the embodiment of the American dream. When I was growing up, people said the American dream is dead. Kid, you'll never go to school. You can't afford it. Who are you? Know your place. You're a factory kid.
Right.
Go do it. And I never accepted that. And so I found that I could use learning to unlock opportunity. Now, if anybody says the American dream is dead, I challenge them. I had to learn out of a set of borrowed encyclopedias
Oh, wow.
that my mom would bring home from the grocery store with a bag of groceries.
I love it.
Right? That was my universe, that and the public library for learning. Today, kids have in their pocket, and I don't care where they are in the world. This isn't just the American dream in America. This can be the dream in Botswana.
Yeah, I agree.
They have in their pocket a portal to unlimited learning.
You remember Encyclopedia Britannica?
Exactly.
The door to door, and I think the World Book is what I was the same way.
This device represents an exponential access versus Encyclopedia Britannica.
Right.
You
Right.
can find anything, learn
Right.
anything. So, what's the excuse? That's why I set out to write the book for young people, to be able to encourage young people to take advantage of the American dream wherever they live in the world. And then as I went through it, I realized, it's not just for young people, because the catchword, the subtitle here is "The future's in your hands."
Right.
And my message to both young people, young entrepreneurs, people of any age,
Right.
is that there is nothing holding us back to have a richer life, to have freedom.
Right.
So if you're on the hamster wheel and you're in a job you don't like and you're, feel stuck, I encourage you, read the book, because what I've put in there is a roadmap really to any of us at any age
Exactly. Yeah.
to use knowledge as, here's what I call it. I call it a light, because that light illuminates a path forward, and it's a light. Knowledge is a light that eliminates fear.
Agreed. You said something there that I think people should really take a moment to understand, that you should never stop learning, and you should never stop trying to do and reach whatever that dream is for you. I look back at some of the brand names we know now, and we think they became super wealthy or had this great success pretty early. But you look at the Ray Krocs of the world even. Mm-hmm. Now, he was working as a salesperson for a while, joined the McDonald's brothers, and then thought, I can do a better job, right?
Sure.
The founders of KFC, same thing. He didn't really start that business until later in life. I remember looking up a company when I first moved to California. I worked with Dollar Tree a lot in Virginia, where they were founded. And then I moved to California, and there was a 99-cent store. And I think he worked his career. I believe he had retired. And then he was talking to his wife one day, if I remember the story correctly. And he was talking about this concept he had of a 99-cent store. And she said, at some point, you need to stop talking about it and do it. You're retired now, and that's fine. Any age is okay. And he did it. And he built a really successful business out of it.
It's the opportunity is there, but you know what, Ronnie? There's a more important opportunity at hand,
Right.
than just changing your career or improving your lot in life. This issue of fear is a problem for individuals. It's a problem for corporations,
Right.
but it's a problem for society.
Right.
I mean, think about America and where America is right now. We are at each other's throats.
Right.
We're fighting over silly stuff,
Agreed.
really. And in the grand scheme of things, the reason that this cover of my book has the world on it, the globe on it, is I've been blessed with a friendship with a number of astronauts.
I love it.
And astronauts, when they come back, whether it's the Apollo guys, Buzz Aldrin, Charlie Duke, space shuttle astronauts, people that have been on the space station like Nicole Schott, Suni Williams, who's up there right now, who I had the privilege of meeting at NASA, they come back to Earth with a different perspective.
Agreed.
And that's what's on the cover of my book. It's called the overview effect. As a pilot myself, I get to see this. I'm flying at 41,000 feet, looking out front, whole different experience. I get to see a globe with no borders.
Wow.
No religions, no races, no.
Right.
It's just beautiful humanity
Right.
unfolding at my feet. And that is the difference. Perspective is the difference between the perceptions that bog us down.
Right.
If you transport yourself back to ground level, we are mired in perceptions.
We are.
Those perceptions cause us to have fear. Fear leads to anger.
Right.
Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to violence. We're in a negative cycle in society, not just in the United States,
Agreed.
all over
Around
the world. The antidote to fear is knowledge
Right.
and understanding. And
Right.
wouldn't we as humanity be far better off if we can reverse this cycle of fear, use knowledge, use education, use understanding, and replace that negative cycle with a cycle of hope
Right.
and peace,
Right.
right? So that's what the book is about. It's about the future is in our hands, both individually and collectively as society, that we can be better than we are.
Agreed. I suspect that you have some business style decoded items in your books.
Oh,
some
yeah.
business decoded items. I'd love for you to give us a nugget or two, but you reminded me, and I usually don't talk too much about the personal and family side on the program, but my daughter just graduated from high school. She was preparing to go to college. In high school, she met a young lady that was in the U.S. from Spain. And I told her that if they invite you to come to Spain with them so you can see the country and understand the beauties, kind of that flying high, then go. So
Yes.
she checked with them. They agreed. She went to Spain. She went on her own. She was 17, 18 years old. And then on the flight back, it was canceled and changed. And I said to her, just stay. Like, stay another week. So she had to find her hotel speaking Spanish. At 18 years old.
That's awesome.
She had to find her own location. She had to learn the community. And she stayed another week. She went to a bullfighting event. She really absorbed the culture at 18 years old. And people ask me, Ronnie, were you afraid for her? Absolutely not. She needed to go learn. She needed to figure out exactly what you mentioned. When you're flying that high, whether in space or in the plane that you mentioned, you just need to take away those borders and realize that in the fear that I'll be okay.
Exactly.
And she did. It's amazing.
I have a whole chapter on your daughter's experience
Okay.
because it was mine.
Okay.
I grew up, as you know, I grew up in you know what Massachusetts is like, right?
Right.
The only diversity, once you get outside of Boston, the only diversity we had was Italian or Irish, right? and the Irish hated the Italians, and the Italians hated the Irish. This was a long time ago, but it was kind of weird, and that was my environment. I didn't know any cultures, anyone that didn't look kind of just like me. And then I had a chance to go to London, and I went to school, and I found myself being a minority.
Right.
And I mean, I'm like, look at me. I look just like these people. Why are they mean to me? Well,
Right.
because I was different. I was an American.
Right.
I was a Yank.
Right.
And who embraced me but my Pakistani and Indian friends,
Oh, wow.
who were the minority in the UK at the time.
Interesting.
They took me aside and said, dude, you got to learn to assimilate.
Yeah.
You're in their country. They're not in yours. Don't be the ugly American.
That's incredible.
It was
so they
true.
they had the wherewithal and the confidence to tell you that.
To coach me.
That is amazing.
And one of my best friends, who's still a dear friend today, lives in Monaco. He's wildly successful.
Love it.
But he was a fellow student, Pakistani kid, Mushtaq Malik. And he said, look, you got to learn to adapt
Right.
and help me understand what I was doing that made me different.
Right.
Because he had adapted, he had become popular, he had overcome that perception
amazing.
of being a minority in a strange land, and so I learned, and I went from being an outcast in the first semester. The second semester, I was playing cricket. They welcomed me onto the cricket team. I was elected in a.
They didn't have cricket in Massachusetts?
No cricket. I was a baseball player, so I was pretty decent. I ended up being a decent cricket player, but they accepted me, and so I came back. And I didn't realize what a life-changing experience like your daughter's having.
Absolutely.
That was to get exposure to other colors, other cultures, and to realize that I was, just one of this patchwork quilt that is all over the world of other people that I can learn from.
Right.
And so the way I looked at it is, the more I expose myself to these other cultures, then I'm this patchwork quilt of every culture I've ever experienced. And that makes me more interesting. And then little did I realize, then I do business with the Japanese. Well, I learned Japanese language, so I would better understand their culture. The Chinese asked us to go to China with 7-Eleven. I was comfortable in dealing with their culture and doing business
And
there.
respectful of their culture.
And respectful of their culture.
And on that note, my daughter also went to Guatemala as a part of a program. She built stoves in the communities. And one of the items they stressed is that you're not coming to Guatemala to change the culture. You're coming here just to be a participant, to understand the culture, learn from the culture, and help in this very specific way. That is it. We're not here to change the culture, tell them right or wrong. And you're right. You learn so much just from that embracing of the local culture and respecting the local culture as well.
Exactly. And it can help your career. People don't make that connection.
Right.
So I little did I realize 20 years later, my largest franchise groups within the franchise community in the United States would be Pakistani and Indian.
I love it.
And here I had the advantage of understanding their culture. They had invited me to the weddings and in their homes. So I call this in the book cultural literacy.
Okay.
And the grand irony is, as I'm out talking to groups, I hear people whine about diversity issues and DEI and all this stuff.
Right.
And I talk about cultural literacy, and everybody's like, yes,
Right.
we must have cultural literacy.
Right.
So in so many cases, it just comes down to perception
Correct.
versus
Agreed.
perspective.
Agreed. Now, most people don't realize that cricket is the second most popular sport in the world.
It is.
Only behind soccer. It's a big deal. So for you to play, are you ready to sign up for one of the major teams in cricket now?
Oh, man, I would love to. But my buddies invited me out to play, and I think to make fun of me, because in the UK, they call baseball players rounders. That's what the girls play there. And so they brought me out to cricket to show me a real sport, right? And I get out there, and you know how confidence is such a big factor in sports.
It is.
And business, right? I've got a whole chapter on confidence. Well, I was a baseball player, and I'm looking at this bat, and the bat's this wide.
Right.
And I'm thinking, they bounce the ball before it gets to me? And in my head, this was an easy game. So I was standing up there swinging away, and I'm thinking, what a great game. I get 6 runs for a foul ball. I love this game. And in my head, I could do this. So I actually made the team.
Okay.
Then they made the huge mistake of teaching me proper technique in defending the wicket, and then I was terrible.
Right.
But it was a fabulous experience.
That's hilarious. I'll end with that. I had a similar experience. I played a lot of baseball growing up, and when I graduated college, I was invited when I was at NASA, in fact, to join a softball team. Now, I hadn't played slow pitch softball. And the guys asked me, "Oh, Ronnie, do you know how to play softball?" And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking, I played baseball. This would be easy. They soft toss the ball. It has this huge arc. Who can't hit it? And I think I struck out the first few times playing. I got the handle on it pretty quick. But you're right. You think, oh, I can handle this. This is going to be very similar to baseball or whatever your sport is. And so some lessons learned there. And being humble is one of those.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good, you mentioned humble. That's a good place for us to end. Part of this whole cultural literacy thing is about humility and learning humility. And in the course of researching the book, I looked up a guy, Norman Vincent Peale.
Right.
He wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. So he's all about confidence, right?
Yes.
But he was a preacher, and he would preach in equal doses the importance of humility. Not humility as in shrinking violet, oh, I'm just not that good.
Right.
Humility in the sense that you're smart enough to know that you don't know everything, and that every human you encounter has something you can learn.
Right.
And
something to offer.
If you look at it that way, especially when you get outside of your own culture, then you will carry a humility that is a natural reaction to, I think I have something to learn from this person, so I want to listen.
I love it. Jim, I think our listeners learned a lot from your experiences, a lot from your thought process, and a lot from your book. Tell us the name of your book again so they can go and get it.
It's called Education is Freedom. The Future is in Your Hands. It's out there on my website, jameswkeys.com. And I got a special offer I'll make for your listeners if this book is intended to be given.
Okay.
And we all have people that we know that could be our kids, could be our coworkers, that really could use this advice. If someone wants to buy 10 or more copies, I'll sign and send me send me an email showing me that you ordered 10 or more copies, and I'll send you a free copy autographed and with a little passage just for you.
Wonderful. Jim, thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. It's been a pleasure having you.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. This has been fun.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.